be plenty to cover. The second half of our script, and the second half is really the technical half. So,
Fine.
um,
I'm mostly a Zoom user, not a Zoom Power user, but I did note that when it came up, Zoom said that it was recording.
I so
So, so you may be getting more recording than you intended.
well, I saw that there was a record option in Zoom. So seconds before you came in, I just hit start the Zoom recording, and we'll see what it does, right? Like I have no idea. So what I'm
Same here.
using is kind of a screen capture recording on the Mac. So I'll have two recordings, hopefully,
Hmm.
hopefully. But we'll see. We'll see.
There.
All right. So the, we're gonna start with kind of talking about the 6600 and any other machines, any other platforms that you'd like to discuss, right? So we don't have to stick just to the 6600. So eh, I'm really curious, you know, you were there for around 10 years, whether you saw any kind of change over that period. So if you remember anything, any, like maybe you noticed the CDC cyber come in. I'm quite interested in the history of the cyber that kind of replaced the 6600, and then we'll go from there into the Fortran, into the game. So let's just start with, tell me a little bit about the 6600. How do you feel about it?
Uh, it was a great machine. It was, of course, a supercomputer in its time. Um, as for changes, as I mentioned, started with punch cards. And by the time I left, we were playing Star Trek online and doing most of our editing online. Let me tell you just a little about the editing process,
Mm-hmm.
because it wasn't like today when you pull up everything you've got and just start editing it. Um, what we did for Star Trek was print the whole thing out every week or two, go through and mark our changes on the printout, and then um, go to the computer and enter them.
Would you say that it was kind of pre-screen editor? Did you?
Oh,
So,
yes. Well,
okay.
as I remember, now bear in mind that this was a long time ago. Um, I don't remember exactly how the editing process worked, but I know that yes, we did do it on a relatively limited terminal, 80 characters by 24 lines, if I recall. Maybe it wasn't 80 characters. I don't remember exactly.
I'm thinking of some of the early editors I'm familiar with, like Techo on
Mm.
the deck system. So these were, they were even called character editors rather than screen editors. It was, this started with editing on paper tape, even, right? That do you remember, like, did you have
Do I
kind of a
remember
cursor
what
that you could
editor I
move around?
used?
Huh?
Do I remember what editor I used? Absolutely not.
No, I'm just trying to picture. You'd be looking at your printout, which you kind of, maybe you would enter the line number, like I want to edit line number something something.
I don't remember line numbers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And as I say, I don't remember exactly how we did the editing
Mm-hmm.
on just a text-only terminal.
But I guess the printout was important. This
Hmm.
this is
Oh, yes.
this is a good hint, right? The printout was important.
Well, that was by far the easiest way to look at the code.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What was your workflow like? You say you printed out once a week, roughly speaking, and then
Well, I'm a bit amused by calling it workflow. My work was my courses, uh, but whenever I thought of a change I wanted to make or an addition I wanted to make, I would figure out where in the code it went, write it out, and then go type it in.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Was
And then, as I recall, I could try it right away.
okay?
I mean, I had to compile it and run it,
Mm-hmm.
but that wasn't a long process at that point.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was. That's what I was just. How about a debugger? Was it? is is kind of just run it and see what happens.
Yeah, and I'd go out and club a cave bear and bring it home for dinner.
Right, right, right.
Yeah, things have changed a great deal, believe me. We're talking what, 55 years ago, something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yep,
And this is not a field that has ever stood still.
yep. Understood, understood. So it's interesting that you mentioned that the 6600 was a supercomputer,
Hmm.
and you know, it's common to see this that it was the first commercial supercomputer. So, what,
Yep.
did you do you remember hearing that back at the
Oh, yes.
time? Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, nobody today would call it a supercomputer.
Did you did you know or have much context on the company? So CDC, this is I guess Minneapolis, right? So kind of up
I
north, and but,
think so.
mm, did you know the name Seymour Cray, for
Oh,
instance?
yes.
Uh-huh. And that he was involved with the design?
As far as I know, he did the complete design.
Mm-hmm.
That and the follow-up machine, uh, which was, I never used it. I don't remember what the next machine was that he designed. Uh, I remember one of his comments was that he was done messing around with small computers and was going to build something impressive. I remember that pictures of it that showed basically a pillar with what looked like seats all the way around it. And
So
probably tonight in bed, I'll remember what that computer was called.
this is interesting. It might just be the Cray one. I mean, I'm just guessing that it might be that simple that you know my picture is that UT had kind of all three generations from the 6600. So the next CDC machine, big machine, was the Cyber, which was transistorized version or a integrated circuits. They brought in integrated circuits. That's the second generation, and then the Cray one, and
Day one, that was it.
All three generations were there in Austin eventually. So
Okay. My undergraduate work was at Michigan State University. They had a control data 3600. I spent some time at Indiana University, and I think at that point they had a 6600. Fairly sure. And then I went to Texas, and they had a 6600. By the time the Cray 1 came out, uh, certainly by the time Texas got one, I had been gone from there,
hmm
but it probably came out well before I left.
hmm so it sounds like you had a lot of experience actually with CDC hardware and CDC Fortran. So
And very little with IBM.
okay, understood. Um, so and yesterday you mentioned that okay, the the 6600 was a 60-bit machine. All right. So so tell us a little bit about what you think about when you think of 60 bits rather than say 36 bits or 32 bits.
Sure. One thing I can think of right away, two things come immediately to mind, actually. One is that there were 6 bits allowed per character, which meant that we didn't have lowercase. The second one was that it was 24 registers uh, in groups of 3, the index registers, the accumulators, and the third group. And when you got into the assembly language programming, for efficiency, you had to keep track of what was in each register so you didn't have to go out to memory any more often than you had to. And doing some very careful, very efficient programming on that is what decided me that I was done with writing in assembly language.
Okay, understood. Did you do any, let's say, major projects in assembly or
I did some projects in assembly because I definitely remember struggling with trying to use those uh, registers as efficiently as possible, but I don't remember what it was,
mm,
and
hmm
I wouldn't call it major in any case.
okay, okay. So the the picture I have is that the 6600 and the 60-bit words. You know, this was really for floating point, and
Mhm.
you know the point is that you essentially get the effect of like a double precision on most machines, but it was a single precision on the 6600 because it had the 60 bits. So you got effectively the you know kind of a double precision effect at single precision speed. So this was big
Yes,
for engineers that were doing they were doing early simulations, right? Numerical simulations. Um,
yes, I don't recall any distinction between single and double precision.
mhm. um, so what I wonder is, were you aware of any of these, let's say, power users that were doing numerical simulations on the 60s? Like, were there people that would hog hog the machine with these big simulations?
Um, I'm sure people are getting into that. There were not any periods. It was time shared, and
Hmm.
there were not any periods where we as students couldn't use it.
Hmm.
So nobody hogged the machine
Okay.
in that sense.
Okay. And the reason I ask is I've got some documentation that describes that there was actually two machines. This is the picture that I'm learning about, that there was the 6600 and there was a 6400, and they called it the dual dinosaur. So there were two. They had shared memory, and that the 6400 was handling the time sharing, and that the 6600 was for the heavy, batch oriented, the big jobs. That's why I asked. I was curious if you saw any signs of that. It might have been a different period that this was happening.
I vaguely recall hearing about something like that,
Hmm.
but I don't think that was at UT at the time.
Okay. Yeah, this might be later. This might be a little bit later. This what I see often is they call it the something like UT2D for the UT dual dinosaur. And
Hmm.
this suggests these two CPUs with the shared memory. So
But it's a cute name, but I'm pretty sure that I didn't do anything with directly with that.
it could have come in later. And there's a lot of there's also a lot of documentation about how the UT system was using kind of custom, like almost a custom operating system.
Hmm.
Um, so kind of there was evidently a standard CDC setup, and then some oddball sites, and UT was one of those oddball sites. I don't know if
True.
true. Something about the character handling. There was something about the line terminations. Does this sound familiar at all? That like, um,
All right. I think you will understand when I say that I don't recall, and I doubt that I knew at the time what
mm-hmm,
was being used as a line terminator.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And because we did, at no point were we doing any character searches or anything like that. It
Mm-hmm.
was just writing code. Every line of code was on a separate line, and that's pretty much all we knew. There was, you mentioned line terminators and something else. What was that?
Well, this is right now. This is all that's coming to my mind. What I've seen signs of in the documentation is that these kind of odd sites. There was a few, and they had a hard time sharing software, sharing code with kind of the normal CDC sites. It's like code had to be rewritten a bit. So, for
Yes, the word
instance,
I was trying to think of yesterday was standardization.
right,
That was in the future
that's right, that's right.
for the languages, for the operating systems, for damn near everything.
So, I thought about this earlier, that let's imagine that we actually recovered your code. We found your Fortran code. All right. We do have a 6600 simulator, the SimH type simulator. What I wonder is, because your code was on a UT machine, will this be a challenge, right? And I have no idea. This is just a question mark. That's something to explore if that ever
Okay,
came.
I'm guessing here. The operating system, I know UT pretty much did their own. The language, I don't think they messed with particularly, the Fortran language.
I think that's the hope, that because it's in Fortran, and as you said yesterday, Fortran was not standardized, but
Fortran 6600.
right, but on the 6600, we could hope that, yeah, Fortran probably
Hmm.
would be a bit standard. So uh, I think we would have
Yeah,
hope that it would run.
yeah, yeah, I'd probably give you at least 60-40 odds on that.
Yeah, yeah, understood, understood. That's about what I would guess too, about 64. Yeah. So let's see. So before we leave the hardware and move into the Fortran, um, what would you say was, with the 6600? What was the best part and the most painful part? Just to sum it up for people. What did you love the most, and what did you find kind of the hardest with the 6600?
Well, 6600 was what there was. I mean, what am I supposed to compare it to? I very much enjoyed programming on it. There were quite a few workarounds to use characters on it since it was designed as an engineering machine, but it was what we programmed in.
How many years do you think of 6600 programming did you get? Close to 10 years?
Oh, I'd say so, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, I've really been into programming languages, and although Fortran was my first language, Fortran for the 3600, which was different from for the 6600, um, I've gotten into a lot of other languages, and I can't say how much toward the end of that I was actually using Fortran anymore. I think I probably was because I think all the introductory courses were still being taught in Fortran.
Mm.
And that means the upper level courses that I was teaching at that time would also assume Fortran.
Mm-hmm. That's important. That's important. That's, so this was kind of the academic language in that environment.
Right.
Yep. Yep. That's important. That's important. So let's move into the game itself. So I think you did an excellent job of describing how you and Paul Reynolds kind of decided to redo this
Mhm.
this this game that was written in BASIC. how long did you spend creating the Fortran version?
I have no idea. I mean, uh, I'm guessing probably a month or two to get the initial version running, and then probably a few more years of tinkering with it.
Hmm. Did you start from the basic code of the previous version, or just start
Oh
from
no,
scratch?
God. That would mean I'd have to look at the basic code. Uh, are you familiar with BASIC at all?
A little bit, a little bit, yeah, a little
Okay,
bit.
let me briefly just point out that it depends on line numbers. All the lines are numbered. They have to be in numerical order, and you refer to other parts of the program by line number. So, so in terms of high-level concepts, no, no, I played the game, and I played the game enough to get it, to know how it went. I think I changed 8 by 8 sectors into 10 by 10 sectors. Um, Changes like that. Nothing fundamental,
Well, let me
but
ask you
that
this.
but that was all recreating it from what I knew it was supposed to do.
When you first saw the Star Trek game, even the basic Star Trek game, did you have a feeling of this ASCII artifact of when you did the scan and you see the sector, a grid? Do you remember seeing this ASCII artifact, and did that impress you at the time?
Um, I don't think I know what you're talking about. I mean, there was certainly ASCII art. I mean, Snoopy calendars and things like that. But I don't remember seeing any artwork in the game itself.
Okay, so I'm not sure that the early Star Trek games did this, but what I'm thinking of is when you typed scan, it would show you a map of.
Yes.
That's
Oh
that's
yeah.
what I mean by art. Is this this
Oh,
ma-
okay.
this
Yeah,
map?
sure.
Yeah, this map.
Sure. Short range scan, long range scan.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly, exactly. So the first Star Trek that you saw already had that, and do you think that like intrigued you that seeing this kind of map was
Well, frankly, my basic impression of that is that it was useful and it was nice to have the range, nice to be able to type out the map when you needed it. But this was at 33 baud, which is like 10 characters a second or something like that. And so, I mean, you'd ask for a long range scan and go make a new cup of coffee or something.
understood, understood. Oh, we're actually at 10 minutes. 10 minutes left.
Hmm?
I just got another warning that we have 10 minutes left. The time is just flying when we're
Oh, good grief.
when we're talking.
No, it's only 4:30. Oh, ah,
I think
you
we have
must, I
I think we
guess you
have 40
started it
minutes.
probably 5 minutes earlier than I got here.
Yeah, I think we have 40 minutes. Um, so let me go forward here through our script. So how big do you think the code base was? Was it a large code base that you were working on,
Oh, I'm guessing about 30 or 40 pages.
I
Well, I
would say
mean,
that's pretty large.
we weren't counting bytes, I mean,
Hmm. Hmm.
we were counting printed pages.
I would say that's pretty complex and sophisticated in some way.
Mm.
I mean, do you think of the that the game was was a bit sophisticated for its time?
No, no, I mean, there were already, there was already the basic version of it, and there were a few other games that I was vaguely aware of. I mean, you could play things like Hangman or hmm, name, don't remember.
So let's ask this: what what part of the implementation was kind of the most fun or interesting for you, and what what were you proudest of in some
Oh, I most enjoyed, I think, the single thing was the thing.
way?
And that occurred to me one night, and I went in and added to the code and set it up so that when you saved the game, it wasn't saved. So you would you would see the thing appearing in maybe once every 20 or 25 games, and you either dealt with it then or it was gone. Do you know what I'm talking about? Do you know what I mean by the thing?
I'm guessing some kind of space monster, but
Yep. It appeared as a question mark. And Spot would say fascinating. And about the only thing you could do with it was shoot it with a photon torpedo, in which case it screamed and disappeared.
so were there was there a Romulan ship in those early Star Treks?
No, no, that was, um, don't know how much time we've got here.
Not very. 5 minutes. We have 5 minutes.
Okay. No, I'm afraid that what happened was that, as I say, we listed out our code and used it for a while and threw it away. And then apparently someone stole our code from the garbage can. Now, we did not have Romulans or dilithium crystals in it, but someone stole our code, created Super Star Trek, and added it. And that was annoying, of course. But if they had simply come to us and said, hey, can we get involved in this? Sure.
Oh, Dave, this is fascinating. I did not know this twist to the history. That okay, that someone got your code and separately created Super Star Trek. I did not know this.
Correct.
So you know what happened then was within 2 years there was the two-player Star Trek on the 6600.
Um, I'm not aware of that. I wasn't paying a lot of attention. I mean, it wasn't my game anymore.
So then within 4 years, there was this later 18-player game, and in it the Romulans appeared as question marks. So kind of like the thing.
Ah,
This is why I
okay. Now, I know nothing about that.
yeah. So in the 18-player game, this AI controlled enemy, the Romulan ship, comes in and it appears as question mark. And it acts somewhat like you described the thing. So what I'm thinking is you might have in fact invented what many people know as the Romulan. when you invented the thing, you might have invented the Romulan.
It could be. Let me also mention one of the things that kept us occupied in talking about the game was trying to get everything balanced so that there was not a best way to play. Initially, the impulse engines were worthless. So we made it possible so that if you used the impulse engines to enter a sector, you weren't detected right away. And that meant you had first shot. But then that meant that the way to win the game was to go every place at a crawl using only the impulse engines. So at that point, we decided that impulse engines took time, and every once in a while, a star would go nova. So, so if you depended entirely on the impulse engines, you'd run out of stars or star bases or whatever.
So
So,
this is another stars going nova is another thing that I'm realizing you might have invented several of the things that later became quite familiar and famous to people
mhm.
in your version. This is entirely possible.
Could be. The thing in particular, I know while I was at UT, sort of had quite a following because anybody that could claim that they had seen the thing got a certain cachet.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Yeah. So this is fascinating. We've got 1 minute left, but what I'm thinking is, I'm gonna hope that we can explore some of these things more in the future, right? That I think there's some interesting questions here. I had no idea that Super Star Trek was a separate, let's say, production from from your code.
Well, you can't call it a separate production in the way that Star Trek was separate from Basic, because that was our code.
Yep. Yep.
They just took it and added to it.
Okay. So I'm glad that we got to learn this. I had no idea. So this is something to follow up. A lot happened at UT with Star Trek. Let's put it that way. And we're just starting to explore all of that. Right? We're gonna explore all that history. So so
Okay,
I think we're gonna run out of time for right now, but I hope that we get to discuss this more in the future. And
okay.
thank you very much for the last 2 days.
It's been fun.
Fantastic history.